All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Big bumps. Welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us today. Live from Little Rock, Arkansas, here at the 90th General Assembly, live from the Marble Palace, as they say. Joining us now, we have, we just talked to State Representative Dwight Tosh, and now we have State Representative Brandt Smith on the program. Good to see you again, Brandt.
Well, thank you, Paul. Appreciate it.
Go ahead and remind we got a newer audience, so in the Arkansas River Valley, so go ahead and tell us, District 58 is where?
District 58 is the heart of Jonesboro in northeast Arkansas. Takes in Valley View all the way up through Arkansas State University, and I do like to say it is the heart of Jonesboro.
Yeah. And you are a Republican.
Yes, I am a Republican.
As are most of the people that come on our show. Although, if I keep criticizing certain Republicans in leadership, maybe no Republicans will ever come on this program again. That's hopefully not ever going to happen. But I wanted to talk to you today because you were in the conservative caucus today, and I got to tell you, I got in on the tail end of that. But it was really, really neat. David Crow does a fantastic job running those meetings, and he asked, "What's the good, the bad, the ugly, and an aha moment?" And I was wondering if you maybe wanted to get back into that. So what's some of the good of the legislative session?
Well, the good, and I probably can't quote myself verbatim, but the good of being down here as a legislator, as a freshman legislator, is rubbing elbows with other legislators that hold the same values that I hold, maybe have the same traditional values that I have, and working together to make a difference, not only in our individual districts, but for the entire state of Arkansas.
Mm-hmm. So that's the good. So
I think so.
You would say realizing that you're not alone in your beliefs, that's a good feeling.
Well, and even reaching across the aisle, I have found several members of the opposition party, I guess we can say opposition party, that they are cut from the same bolt of cloth. Many times I notice they're voting exactly the way I vote. As a matter of fact, I've had discussions with some folk and representatives, and they'll tell me, you might be surprised how many times I will vote right alongside you. And so I don't know that we can only say that one group or the other is more conservative or less. I know that there have been some moments even on the Republican side where we seem to have disagreement, or maybe a little rough language to say fracturing, but we have seen some continuity in many of our votes. But then that would kind of take us down into the bad that I've seen. I'm really careful.
So we heard the good, folks. Yeah. This is now the bad.
This is the bad. And but I think one of the things that was disappointing more than maybe just bad was knowing one day, or say a week before some votes we knew would come before the House, that we would have 25, maybe 26 confirmed I am voting opposing a certain bill or measure that might come up before the entire body. And then by the time we get ready to vote, that 25 to 26 number that we had that were confident they were going to vote one specific way, then we noticed, hey, where did those people go? We're down to 15 or 16.
And on that's a very good point. We're talking with State Representative Brandt Smith. I heard the same thing. I was trying to get whip counts for some of the, because if those 25 people who were claiming to be conservatives, and I honestly think a big portion of those they are. It's all about leadership, though. They're not necessarily leaders, and I know I hate to say it like that, but if you had the right leadership, they would go. They would go with that, and because I think that's the way they really believe. But there is pressure, right? There's pressure when you go against what the.
It's a different kind of pressure. I think a lot of constituents think that when we get down here, there's arm twisting, there's someone actually threatening if you don't vote this specific bill a certain way,
Yeah.
we're going to do harm to you. It's not like that. But there is that idea of perhaps I've got a bill I want passed. I've got a bill that I need signed into law. It's made it through the House. It's made it through the Senate. I don't want it to die somewhere, like down the road, or I don't want it killed in another committee if I'm just trying to move it through. So what I noticed was that we began to become so attached to the bills that we sponsor or that we co-sponsor. And I think sometimes, even though it may be a leadership issue, we've got some great leaders, but and we're all basically type A personalities, but it's like, who's the alpha leader? And and I talk about this a lot. It's not so much just who has the position of leader, but who has the influence. And so oftentimes those small groups get together and they discuss certain things, and there are some very persuasive people here.
Yeah, there really are. I met some of them in the bathroom earlier.
You were in the bathroom conducting interviews?
Not by my choice. I tell you that much. Yeah. Anyway, so that's very interesting to me, because you're saying that the bad was, look, I thought we would have maybe commitments of saying, hey, we have 20 people. Would you describe that most of the time, okay, you had 20 or 25 people, but then all of a sudden you wake up the next day and it's down to 16? This happened several times, I'm assuming, and were your positions as previously calculated more about limited government and conservatism? I mean, most of the time people are saying, I think this is more conservative, I'm going to go with this, but then they kind of abandon that.
Well, some of the bills that have come through that has pulled some of the representatives that would be opposed to one day to a specific bill and then favorable the next day, what happens is we are bombarded with information. We get emails, we get text messages, we have lobbyists here that say, have you considered this side of this? Or we begin to see more of a complete picture, and it begins to cast doubt on our own judgment. And so what I've noticed, and I've mentioned this, it's not a secret, but I think a lot of times when we're whipped, and I mean, really polled, where are you on a certain issue, they don't want to know your why. They want to know, are you a yay vote or a nay vote, or are you undecided? And I think what happens is, if you are still undecided, that leaves some wiggle room for more influence. But many times when I'm approached by the whip, I'll just say, I am strongly opposed to this. I'm a no vote. They leave me alone. And there's no animosity. There's no threatening later, because people have said repeatedly down here, and this is what I appreciate, even if someone disagrees with my conservative view of a specific bill or what we're trying to do, they don't beat me up over it. They respect me for my position. I try to respect them for their position. So there's not a lot of wrangling over, well, let's exclude him. Let's cut him out of our circle. I've never felt marginalized.
So what I hear you're saying, we're talking with State Representative Brandt Smith, is that if you give the firm no,
or a firm yes.
That you're just like, okay,
Right.
It's the people that say, well, I'm not sure about this, that get the attention. And right, I mean, that's, if I was trying to convince somebody of my position, I'd want to know the ones who I could potentially gain,
Right.
So that does make a lot of sense. I wonder, I guess I just feel like those who are undecided in this session, it seems like they're only going one way. Like, oh, I'm undecided about whether to grow government here for this long, and I might want to shrink it, but in the end, oh, well, I'll go ahead and grow the government.
Well, it's a drift, and sometimes I believe it's a drift in the wrong direction, but everyone that I've spoken with will tell me, after I really looked at the language of a specific bill, I felt this is the best we're going to get. This is as good as it's going to get. And so it was like, I don't want to oppose the sponsor. I don't want to oppose my leadership. And so I respect that, but I've never had anyone just dump on me for holding firm to a promise I made to my constituents. And I think because we all have constituents, even our constitutional officers, they have constituents, more broad than I do. But when you say I'm undecided, you're basically saying I'm open to more information. And I'm not closed-minded, but I made some commitments back during the campaign that these are unchangeables. These are my principles. And while I can afford you that opportunity to really maybe consider or reconsider, there are just some things I can't do.
Yeah. Okay, so good, that's the bad. Do you want to get into any uglies?
Uglies. I think at this point, and I don't think I mentioned this in the conservative caucus, but it's probably true, most people think this is a part-time job. I did. But most of the time we're working 60 and 80 hours a week down here. And so by the time we reach this point in the session, we're a week or so away from wrapping it up. I think everyone is running on empty, especially those of us that have a day job too.
Right.
Because I know several of the state reps tell me the minute they leave the Capitol, they're taking care of their day job. And while some have businesses where they have staff or employees that can pick up the slack, several of our members are CPAs. And this is tax season.
Yeah, this is, yeah.
And one of them said he had 2,500 clients he's trying to service and make sure that everything is on time.
Wow.
So there's a lot of weariness too. And so I've seen some tempers flare and some feelings hurt and some apologies, heard some apologies from the House floor. And I think that's natural, but it's usually just a quick burst, and then it's, I apologize to the House, or I apologize to the Speaker, and then we move forward and take care of the state's business.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. How have you handled, telling us about the legislative process, but how have you handled lobbyists? And I mean, there was some talk in the conservative caucus about, lobbyists are obviously here. There were some questions, and the concept of listening to lobbyists, not, in listening just to listen, like listening for potential information, good information or bad information. How has that relationship developed?
Well, the first resource that I fall back on is the advice or the counsel and the interest of my constituents. And it's amazing how many people will call me and they will make the comment, I'd like to speak with Representative Smith. Or can you pass me through to someone on Smith's staff? And I'll say, well, wouldn't you prefer to talk to the representative? Mm-hmm. Well, yes, I would. And I'd say, well, you're speaking with him, and they're surprised. But I listen to the constituents, but there are some lobbyists, they're very professional. I've never had any of them strong-arm me, but most of the time the professional lobbyists will say, I'm here as a resource, I'm available to answer questions. I have had some lobbying groups that are more forceful than others. As a matter of fact, one in particular looked at me and he said, if you vote yes on this, you're going to gut Jonesboro. And see, that's kind of a veiled threat. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I'm not going to gut my own city.
Right.
I care about my city. But I think sometimes it's that intimidation maybe to, you better think about this.
Yeah.
Well, I give a lot of consideration to every vote that I make. And I also try to return phone calls and text messages. But if I'm in session and a lobbyist sends me a note to call me off the floor, I usually send a note back, probably 95% of the time, and I'll say, as soon as we're done today, I'll come out and meet with you. And often they'll wait. Sometimes they don't.
Right. Well, and calling you off the floor, I mean, that's that's a way to get you to change your
Well,
mind at the last minute.
It is, and Paul, I don't think I've missed but maybe one vote since I've been down here. I know I did not vote for one amendment because I wasn't favorable to the bill to start with, so why would I vote for the amendment?
Yeah.
And so I think I have a pretty good record. I hope I do. I'm proud of it.
Well, I tell you this, I know you are a leader, and I know you've had an incredible resume to in your previous tasks and accolades and things that you did. But I certainly will say I'm so glad that you're down here, and I can see a difference in what you have learned and what you have absorbed in the process from maybe the first interview we did when I was first coming down here at the beginning of the session 6, 8, 7, or 9 weeks ago, and now, and I just
has it only been that long?
I don't know.
It seems like forever.
Maybe it's what is it? I guess it's been longer than that, but anyway, I'm really thrilled that you're down here representing constituents because I have a feeling that, seriously, Brandt, that your leadership is going to be of great use to people who want government to shrink and not grow.
Well, let me tell you about our Speaker of the House. I have a lot of respect for Jeremy Gilliam. I've had times where I would sit with him and talk, or we would just stop in the hallways and just chit-chat.
Yeah.
And, at first I was a little concerned, well, maybe we're not going to have the leadership that we really want coming into the 90th General Session, but it was a short period of time when I felt like we have a good Speaker of the House, and I've been very supportive. I don't think I've run into too many men and women with as much patience as he has, and I don't think this isn't a reference to him, but I don't think we always do everything 100% right.
Yeah.
But this guy makes an effort. Mm-hmm. And because he makes the effort, I am going to go out of my way to be supportive. And I really appreciate it. And he's got the greatest wife, next to my wife. He's got the greatest wife in the world.
Well, State Representative Brandt Smith, I think we're going to leave it there, sir. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Folks, we're going to go to break. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Broadcasting live from the 90th General Assembly here, wrapping up the first hour. It's been an interesting hour. And I got to be honest, I started by telling everybody about an interesting encounter I had with the leadership of the Republican Party, and it was just all coincidental. I have to go to the bathroom, and it's just amazing. Go into the bathroom, and there's Senator David Sanders, and then we strike up a conversation, and before I know it, Senator Jim Hendren comes in, and anyway, I will tell you this, that it doesn't appear that they are fans of my interpretations of some of the bills that they've written, some of the bills that are now law during this session. I certainly know that. But we're going to keep the same focus, the same prism that we view the analysis in, because we are about shrinking government, we are about shrinking dependency on government, and we are about not spending money that we do not have. That's what we're about here. And so we're going to continue to do the exact same thing, and we're going to continue to speak the truth. And that's all I could say to them. I know people are upset that there appears to be kind of a divide between Republican leadership and those, like people like me. But the only thing I can say is, hey, I'm just reading what's in the bill. That's all that we're doing, is reading, and we are specifically telling you exactly what a bill does or exactly what a bill doesn't do. And then we're able to compare that in contrast to things like the planks of the Republican platform, campaign promises, where the party stood when they were in the minority and now where they stand now that they're in the majority, and how seems to be a little bit of hesitation. Well, now that we're in leadership, we could really screw things up. And that kind of goes to show that maybe they don't necessarily believe in the principles of limited government, or they think that they can use an element of Obamacare to somehow undo Obamacare. Anyway, we're going to continue to tell you exactly what's going on. Coming up next, we'll be talking with State Senator Brian King. Will be joining us. Thanks so much for being with us. We got one more hour coming your way next.